Hi everybody, it's C. Charisse coming to you on a lazy Sunday. I've been doing some work and my husband actually requested this video. It is how I prepare for an IEP/mediation hearing. So I'm coming up on mediation hearing now. I've had 2 IEP meetings for my 3-year-old transitioning from 0 to 3 early intervention to 3 to 5 preschool services. And I wanted to give you some tips on how I prepare for those meetings. And they're going to be 5 tips. So tip number 1, have a highlighter and pens with you when you get your IEP report. A lot of times they will give you the IEP report on the day of the meeting. You won't have time to read it. I suggest reading it, not signing it on the day of, and being 100% comfortable if you do sign it with everything on that piece of paper. In my experience, there's been a lot of information in those documents, and I've never signed it the day of because I'm trying to digest the information. There also might be words on it that I might have to look up and don't know the meaning to. And it's always best to take your time, read through stuff, highlight anything that you don't understand, and you have the time to look it over and not feel pressure to sign it. Tip number 2, start before your meeting, writing down your ideal plan. You write down what things or what concerns and issues you want addressed. Make sure you have that down in your mind. Have it written down, bring it with you. And then you can see where the recommendations fall short or better in your favor. You can either compromise or see where you need to be insistent. At least if you have your plan down and you have your ideas written down for yourself, you can always refer back to them, or then you could bring them up during the meeting and see if the goals that were recommended match up with what you were thinking. So goal number 3, and this is a good one. Make sure your concerns are being addressed in each goal and per setting. If not, something needs to change. So if you see the goals written there, you don't see, or you see that one of your concerns or many of your concerns are missing and not addressed in those goals, make sure you get them added in and make sure that those goals are going to be met in the setting that they suggest. I've seen a couple of instances where a goal was written down, but then you look at the setting or you look at the hours that your child's going to be at that setting, and then you realize, realistically speaking, they're never going to get to this goal. You make sure you bring that up, or at least engage the question. Okay, well, how is this going to be met if they're going to be here for this amount of time, or that setting didn't have this? How are you going to account for it? Make sure everything wraps up in a bow and that you can understand that realistically, because that's very important. Things can be written down, but if the plan isn't there and the placement isn't there to support it, then it means nothing. Okay? Tip number 4, make sure each goal is measurable and understand how you can request data on outcomes. Okay, each goal has to be measurable. It has to be a point where you can see that things are getting better, or you can see if it's stagnating or getting worse. If there's no measurement, there's no progress, everyone loses, it's nothing to talk about. When you go to say, I don't think this is working, or I think this is working, we can move a little further or faster, you can't do that if there's no measurement. So make sure there's a measurement to each goal. Make sure you know, okay, well, how can we make sure that this goal has been fulfilled? How are we going to measure this? How can I make sure that my child is progressing, getting better, getting worse, whatever it may be? Okay? And last but not least, this is tip number 5, and this is really a good one that I don't know if people do or not, but I do it, is to write down the titles of your team members under each goal. And when you're looking at the goal, check off to see if the team members are being used during that goal. So for example, I have 5 goals. Under 5 of my goals, I wrote down the titles to my team members. I have an occupational therapist, speech therapist, special instructor, ABA therapist, PT, whatever. I wrote those down, and then as I looked through the goals, I started to check off if one of them or many of them were going to be needed in order to implement that goal. As I was doing that today, I noticed that out of 5 goals, only one of them addressed occupational therapy concerns. And I said, well, this is strange. I think I need OT to overlap over all 5 of these goals, not just one. So the next time when I go to my hearing, I will bring up that, you wrote occupational therapy here, but what are they really doing? Because it looks like out of the 5 goals, only one of them, they're actually doing something. Making sure that you know where people are supposed to be responsible is critical, because at the end of the day, you sign off on this plan and you're saying this plan is doable. When you start to measure out these things and you start to look at it and you go, this doesn't look doable, that's a red flag that you need to bring up. More often than not, there's a lot of people on your team. Sometimes they're only looking at the parts that they are responsible for. You as the parent are responsible for the whole plan. You want to make sure all the cogs, all the people are working in tandem or working together to get these goals fulfilled. So if you see that everybody's just working on their own piece in their own silo and nothing's coming together, you should know that up front. And you should address that during your meeting. Hey, looks like you're working over here, you're not working with everybody else, and it's really separated. How are you, trying to get the whole child to surpass this goal? More often than not, people are just looking at their own piece. And there's nobody really coordinating all of these things together. I mean, they try, they evaluate, they throw some spaghetti on the wall, give it to you. But at the end of the day, if you see, they're just writing down stuff and none of this is realistic. Or how is this going to work? I don't see how any of this is going to work together. Or the placement that you are recommending doesn't really, support all of these things happening. It's just not realistic. You get the whole plan. Most of the time, your coordinator or the people who are evaluating their separate pieces don't see the whole plan. So because you get the whole plan and they deliver that whole plan to you, you make sure that whole plan is realistic and working. And you should be comfortable with that before you sign off on anything. That is very important because you want to make sure your team is doing what they're supposed to do and that they're well accounted for and that they know what they are responsible for. So those are your 5 tips, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful to anybody who's going through this process. I will do a follow-up and let you know how it goes, what goes on after my mediation. And as always, please don't do anything that you're not comfortable with. Write down everything for yourself so that you don't forget anything. You don't, you be emotional at that meeting. But you might need to write your points down with you. And guys, have a great day. I hope everything goes well for you in your endeavors. Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.